Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. If you're new here, my name is Christina. If you're not new here, hi, welcome back. It's good to see you. This is a reading for Pisces rising, or if you have significant Pisces placements in your chart and are needing a neutral energy to help balance masculine and feminine aspects within yourself, then this reading is for you. So Pisces, we're going to get started with the overall context of your reading. We're starting off here with the spring, the oil of vitriol, and the coagulation, which is so interesting. This card is one of the most difficult cards in this deck. For me personally, I just find this one really challenging. And I feel like there's something here about like the importance of this card, because it's kind of like, I feel like there's a situation here, Pisces, for you, and it feels like there's another person involved in this situation, whatever that feels like your traveling companion is just how I'm gonna put that, whatever that means to you. So it could be a significant relationship, it could just be someone who's very close to you. Those are the same thing. It's kind of just like there's somebody with you that's traveling with you, but it kind of feels like there's been some sort of situation here where it became too much. I don't necessarily feel it's like a dynamic between the two of you, right? This is not something between the two of you. It feels like there's something external to you where it's becoming too much, and it's kind of like one or both of you, Pisces, in this dynamic have taken a step back from this, is what this is feeling like. Because it kind of feels like with the spring card that you were about to embark on some sort of journey, or like start something new with the spring, right? Like some sort of new, perhaps project or whatever, commitment, or something was about to start. Something was coming together, but then it became too much, is like what the context is feeling like. It's so interesting. Because you also have here, so many planet cards came out for you in this reading. So you have the Uranus and Mars, the fissures, mirrors, and delays, right? So something has been delayed is kind of how this is feeling. And I feel like it's because it's bringing in this energy of like Mars and Cancer. I know I talk about this so much if you've been watching like the most recent readings. This energy of like, because Mars talks about forward movement, but in the sign of Cancer, it's much more of sort of like a going inward, which is really important because I feel like that's the overall theme of your reading, because it kind of feels like, okay, so you have here, this Five of Voices is kind of like something arrived, is kind of how it's feeling. There's two of you in this, and it's like there's something here like well, I want to say it's like this is the thing that you're trying to create or move towards, right? But it's kind of like something here is preventing you from seeing that the clarity perhaps, or like the goal that you're working towards, because it's coming out with the Three of Voices, something fearful, I want to say, right? It's like you were about to go into this, well, I want to say it's like something fearful because this Eight of Materials, I love this card because it has such a unique message where it's kind of like so perhaps something like, I feel like coming out with the Eight of Pentacles, something that you were working towards. But this card always comes in with this energy of like, it is actually kind of fearful because it's like perhaps you are not quite sure what you're looking at, or it's like such a strange or different experience maybe that it's at first glance a bit terrifying is what that's feeling like. But I feel like for you, Pisces, because this energy here is kind of like, it kind of feels like there's a partnership of some sort. It doesn't have to be though, because this energy is kind of like a balancing neutral energy. It could be two aspects of yourself as well, right? Like perhaps there was something that you were trying to move towards, but then you caught wind of something up ahead that was kind of terrifying. And so the other aspect of yourself, your perhaps feminine energies, were like, okay, let's take a time out, is what I'm seeing with these two cards. Let's just take a time out in this Ace of Emotions energy in order to reevaluate. That's sort of like the context of this reading. So because the first two cards in the actual like current energy, you have here the Blue Vault, the Blue Temple, and the rotation card, but actually how it came out, like these two cards came out together and it looked like this, right? With the rotation card in reverse, which is really interesting because this blue temple, it's a very Piscean energy. And you also have here the Neptune fog, a card, which is also the ruler of Pisces. And so it's kind of emphasizing to me this energy of like being in a very imaginative state, being very much like in sort of, I want to say your emotional energies, right? Like really paying attention to like how you feel and perhaps how the other is feeling in this situation as well. Because if there is another, or just, it could just be within yourself, right? Because I feel like there's one person here, and it might be you, Pisces. I'm not exactly sure about that. Who in this dynamic is feeling kind of, because it kind of feels like there's one person who's feeling really anxious about this, the other one who's feeling a bit more calm and steady, right? That's usually, I feel like that's sort of usually how it plays out whenever there's some sort of new or scary or unknown situation. If you're doing it with another person, one person sort of is playing the role of being really anxious. The other one is sort of the one to calm them down. So it could be something like, I don't know which role you're playing, Pisces. I'm inclined to say that you're the one who is calming the other down, is kind of how it's feeling. Just because this is your reading. And it's kind of like here with these two energies, that because the other person is perhaps like having a little bit of anxiety or fear or doubt or whatever it is, it's kind of like you're taking control of the situation by saying, okay, let's take a pause. Let's reimagine, or let's reevaluate, or go back to the drawing board, is kind of how that's feeling. Not necessarily going back to the drawing board, right? Like, it's not like you're having to start over. It's kind of just like taking a pause and evaluating how to shift or readjust or fine-tune, perhaps. There's another word that wants to come through. Recalibrate the space, or like how it is that you're moving forward towards your goal. With this here, the winter, right? Which is kind of like, because you were in the spring energy is how it's coming through. You were in the spring, you were starting something new, but it's like turning back, right? The rotation card being in reverse, taking a step back, perhaps, back into the winter, which is kind of like a pause, a planning, a hibernating, perhaps, like a quiet energy is what this is feeling like. And then for the tarot cards you have here, the first two cards here you have are the Lovers and the Ace of Inspiration, which I really love. Because this Lovers card is that choice or decision, and it's kind of emphasizing that there's another in this connection or in this story. This Lovers card to me represents an energy of like a rendezvous point, right? Like a carpool parking lot. It's where you meet with the other in order to start on your new journey, is what this is feeling like. The Ace of Inspiration, again, is this spring energy where it's feeling like this is like the creative new project or whatever it is that you and this other are embarking on. But then what comes out next are these two cards, the Birds and the Ten of Swords, the Ten of Voices. Sorry, not the Birds, the Queen of Voices and the Ten of Voices. In response to this, right? So I feel like this is somebody else's energy, but it could be yours. So just fit it into your life however it resonates. I'm just going to explain it in the way that it's coming through to me. So this other person is, all of these birds are getting stirred up, right? All of the birds are getting stirred up. There's and it's coming through with the Ten of Voices, which feels like so it could be like a reminder of a past energy, right? Like the last time they were in this state, something happened. And so they're being reminded of that, maybe, perhaps. Or it's just some sort of responsive anxiety for whatever reason. That's going to be different for each person. But then here you're coming in here with the birds and the miracles. That's why I said birds here, because I feel like, which is so interesting, when I read the descriptions for these two cards in the book, both of them came with a story of the author's experience with anxiety, which is really interesting. Both of them were talking about a situation where the author of the guidebook was experiencing a severe anxiety energy, right? And then both of these symbols were things that help them sort of get out of that anxiety state. So I feel like Pisces, for you, it's kind of like either you're doing this for somebody else, like you're being... While this one's experiencing anxiety, it's almost like you're being sort of the energy that's helping to pull them out of that, or to remind them that this energy is a past thing, or like it's not true in some way, right? It's somehow a distraction, or it's like a response of fear or something like that, and it's like helping them to bring them out of that energy. Again, it could be flipped, so it could be that you're experiencing this and there's somebody coming in to help you to soothe that response, to get you out of that that state. So keep that in mind. But I'm inclined to say as well, because this is your reading and it's a rising reading with the ascendant, because I really love this card. Because it talks about, excuse me, my throat is getting all, anyways, itchy. So there's this, with this card, it's talking about how you show up, right, in the world, how you interact with the world, and how others interact with you. And being a Pisces, I feel like this blue vault space is a really important energy, right? It's kind of like a really important energy for you, Pisces, where it's kind of like, I feel like you have a particular skill set, perhaps, or gift in sort of being in this sort of nebulous space, with this sort of like being able to imagine, being able to daydream, that kind of thing. Because it is a very sort of like almost like peaceful, right? Like floating in an ocean, or floating in water, or just like allowing your perhaps thoughts to just flow naturally, because what comes out next is Neptune, right? Which is your ruler. So it's kind of feeling like it's kind of feeling like a collective energy. I feel like there's something to do with mixing everything into a pot, which is coming through for some reason, because how I'm seeing it. Okay, so this next card out is the darkening card, which is really interesting, because this talks about like something is happening, right? Because of this energy, it was kind of coming through with the Ace of Inspiration. If you've ever made braised short ribs, I don't know why this example is coming through, but there's a process to that where it's kind of like the first step in braising short ribs, in the cooking process, I should say, is that you turn like the heat on high, right? Or relatively high, and you put the meat down and it gets darker, right? It's a darkening process, meaning like you're cooking just like the outside of the piece of short rib, in order to gain flavor, because that's where all the flavor comes in when you sort of darken the meat. But if you were to cook, it doesn't cook all the way through, is what that's feeling with all of this energy, right? It's like the spring, something started cooking, but you don't cook it all the way through, because if you were to cook that piece of meat at that temperature for the entire time, it would burn the meat, right? And so the next part of the process in cooking braised short ribs is that you put all of the meat in the pot. You put like sauces and the braise, and then you put in the oven at a much lower temperature. That's what I'm seeing here with the blue temple, right? It's kind of like there was this process here of turning the heat up high in order to gain some sort of flavor through this darkening process, right? So it could have been that this process was really intense, or it was perhaps uncomfortable, but now it's like you and this other person, or you and whatever it is, this project, this other energy that you're connecting with, are now in the braise. I'm seeing this blue temple where it's like you're now in the oven at a lower temperature, right? Much cooler relatively, in order to fully cook the meat, right? To fully cook it, to make sure it's cooked all the way through without burning, or overdoing it, or going, like, if that makes sense. So I feel like perhaps you, Pisces, are the one that's directing this, right? Like organizing, or like pulling back the heat, or pulling back the energy, or just understanding that in this process of the darkening or the cooking or the building or whatever it is, creating, there is a necessity to pull back for a time in order for that cooking process to be done at a pace that is very slow but steady and will not burn the final product, is kind of how this is feeling. So it's kind of like this energy here is really important for you, Pisces, I want to say, because I feel like this is something that you are very gifted at, right? Because the Neptune is coming in with this energy of the braise, where it's kind of like all these flavors are being mixed together, and and in that sort of slow cooking process, all of the flavors get melded in. It adds more richness to the overall taste of the dish, if that makes sense. But if you were to increase the heat too much or leave the heat on too much, it would burn the final product, or burn out perhaps, right? So I feel like there's this energy that you are bringing into a situation. It's like all of these birds were getting stirred up, whether that's your anxiety or somebody else's, or just the overall energy of the situation perhaps. And then here you have this, the Knight of Cups and the Muse of Emotions, which I absolutely love, because this is the energy of the cooling, right? The blue temple energy of all of this emotional energy, the braise being added to the pot in order to cool down or stop something from burning, is what that's feeling like, right? It's adding emotional energy into the situation so that the flavors can infuse together. This reading's making me a little hungry now. Okay. But then the next card here, because I feel like on some level, again, so if you're playing the role of, you're the one bringing all the water to the situation, right? Or to, like, perhaps forcing, I don't know how else to phrase that, like encouraging the others to take a time out. I feel like there's, again, this energy here of like, you're also doing this, because you have here the Page of Voices and the Seven of Voices, right? Okay, so this might be the other energy, because it's coming through the voices, where it's kind of like there's the Page of Voices, which is so interesting, because it's kind of like they are the Queen of Voices, but they're now going back into almost like this learning phase, because it's kind of like when you're in water, right? It's like you need goggles. You need a different type of vision, is what that's feeling like. A different type of vision in order to see, because, again, because it's coming through with all of the emotional Neptune energy, it feels like kind of like, for me personally, that feels more like a subconscious collective kind of energy, right? Where everything, everybody's wishes, everybody's dreams, everybody's fears, all these illusions are sort of all mixed into the pot, is how that's feeling. And so I feel like your role, Pisces, might be in helping the other ones to see clearly in this new environment or atmosphere, because with the Page of Voices, it's like giving them a pair of goggles so that they can see underwater, that kind of thing. And what they're seeing here is the Seven of Voices, which always comes in with this energy of illusion, right? There are positive things in this space, but there are also fears that are present in this space as well, where it's kind of like this is how it looks underwater, perhaps, right? It's kind of murky. It's not quite clear. It's a little bit distorted because it's moving, right? Light travels differently underwater than it does in air. And I feel like for them, it's like they're learning how to see or identify the different components of this space that has both positive and light aspects, but also darkness and shadow. right? There's both of those two energies. And I feel like you Pisces are showing them how to do this, because the next card here is the World Cosmos, which I'm seeing is you, right? The World card. But it's always like your vision in this space, because you're practiced at it, right? Because you're very in tune with this energy, the Neptune energy, you're showing them the full vision is kind of how it's coming through. Like I want to say because it's coming in with like the world, right? It's kind of like it's bringing this energy of balance and like an ecosystem, or like an equilibrium, or just cycles, right? That there's it's almost like you're seeing the full picture, but perhaps they were just focused on like the fear aspect, right? Because that's always going to be present. This energy is always going to be present in some capacity. But perhaps they were just overly focused on it, I want to say, because in this energy, it's like the fear is always there, but you can choose to sort of focus on the next goal, is what that's looking like, rather than like sort of looking down, if that makes sense. Even though you are aware that energy is there, it's like there has to always be a reflection or a balance, is kind of how that's feeling. The trick is to just like focus on the aspect that you want to see more of, is what this is feeling like. Knowing that you're always going to see this on some level. Like that's almost like a peripheral energy. But that means that there's always like the lightness that comes through. Anyways, I feel like I'm overdoing that part, but, the next card here is the Ace of Materials, right? Which is talking about a solid and grounded sort of beginning, right? This is very much the spring energy, because I feel like it's like there was sort of this kind of perhaps increase in heat, I want to say, in order to gain flavor, whatever that means, or gain some sort of like significant change or transformation. Because if you think of like sugars becoming caramel, right? There's a darkening process that adds a whole bunch of different and unique flavor to the dish, or whatever it is. But then this is like the final dish complete, right? Everything's cooked. Everything's sort of melded together in a very unique and balanced way, is what I want to say about that. And I feel like this is now like the starting point, right? This is kind of like the go energy, like going forward, is what that's feeling like with the Ace of Materials. It's like putting something solid coming in, is what that's feeling like, which is really, really positive, Pisces, because I feel like you're almost the one who's taking charge of this situation to like soothe everybody's nerves while something is slow cooking in the oven, if that is how that's feeling. So Pisces, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to move to the extended and talk about what else you may need to know about this situation. If you're interested in that, you can find the link in the description box below. I'm also doing a sale on my personal readings, so if you're interested in one of those, check the description box for more information. That's it for me. If this message resonated with you, please consider subscribing, liking, or leaving a comment. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.